This podcast is on a mission to end the orphan crisis. You're listening to Family is the Answer, powered by Podcast Network Asia. We share resources and stories to equip families who plan to adopt and foster, empower advocates who fight for vulnerable mothers and children, and invite communities to impact generations. I'm Karina Kuna-Henson, the Executive Director for Generations Home, a nonprofit organization and licensed child placement agency based in the Philippines. Learn more about our work through our website, generationshome.org. Now, let's jump in to this week's topic.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Family is the Answer podcast. It's me again, Karissa. Again, I'm from the advocacy team of Generations Home. And today we have a very special episode because I am not alone. As you can see, there are other wonderful women here on the sofa with me. I am with the rest of the advocacy team of Generations Home. And I'm so excited to have them with us today, even if I forced them to come here. I'm so glad they're here. These are people that maybe you don't see a lot, but they do a lot behind the scenes, really getting the message out there and getting people on board with ending the orphan crisis in the Philippines. And so without further ado, I want to introduce them to you. Maybe I'll just ask them to introduce themselves instead of me doing it. Here beside me is Tina. Would you like to start?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tina, and I love being part of this team.
I also want them to share, how did you get connected to Generations Home?
It was so unexpected, actually, how I got connected to Gen Home. I just co-worked in their space, and I basically just got to know everybody that time for the first time, except for Jam. Jam was the first one I met, and then everything was just history afterwards.
Such a weird sentence.
It's wild. There was nothing after that meeting, and then January this year, that's it. It's just crazy how God just really orchestrated me being part of the team and them also reaching out to me. It was just crazy how it went. But yeah, that's how I got connected with Generations Home.
For me, I got connected to Generations Home because I was working previously at a different organization. We would cross paths. I crossed paths with John Henson first at one of the events at church, and then Krina, and then Jam, and we were trying to do something together because I was working at an organization that rescued trafficked women. So we were trying to do something together in partnership. And then a few years after I met them, I was at the crossroads. I didn't know where to go next. My previous job ended already. And I was like, where do I go next? And then I reached out to Jam randomly, asking them if are you hiring anyone? And the rest is history. So that's how I got connected to Generations Home. And how about you, Esther?
The moral of the story is Jam's dangerous.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. Mine is I still want to be part of an international NGO. And I realized when I was researching that if you're not part of an organization earlier, then you're not going to be taken seriously. And I saw my friend who's an adoptee, so she's talked about it publicly, right? So she was posting on Facebook and we're very close. And I said, what's this? What's this organization? And when she told me, I said, I'll just volunteer because she's already there and I know her and I can join. And then we had a call with Jam.
Jam, all roads lead to you.
Okay, and then, so I was just volunteering for a few months. And then when I was asked to join the team, actually, I was going to say no. They know this, I'm not saying anything new. And the night before, I even had a call with a diplomat from another country, like asking about how to get into international organizations at the time. And then she told me that normally you should have 3 to 5 years working experience locally. So the no became a yes the very next day, because the next day was my interview with Generations Home. And it's going to be my 5th year next March. So yeah.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. The rest is history.
I'm Jam. The Jam that they speak of. No, I've been part of Generations Home, as a volunteer, and then leading the advocacy team for a few years. But what started it for me was meeting Karina, and the rest is history. No, what I did see, before meeting her, it was really chancing upon a Facebook post where my small group leader at the time was tagged, and it was a picture of just a group of friends celebrating this baby, calling it a baby shower, but the baby was already there. And when that was a picture, the short of it is that's a picture of Karina's Chloe being celebrated when she came to their home through adoption. And at the time, I was also at a crossroads, right, of figuring out, why am I in law school, and why am I studying about my nation and seeing all these numbers of vulnerable families and vulnerable children? What am I supposed to do with this? I want to be in ministry, But when that came about, I think that really just confirmed and kind of slowly carved out a path that was a lifelong advocacy, I would say. And that really started it for me, and that's how I got here.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. The story of how you got connected to Karina and John. And a lot of people actually may not know, especially for people who just have heard of Generations Home recently, that Generations Home, or formerly Rohe Foundation, really started as an advocacy. And it was a campaign and a push into people's minds and hearts that there are vulnerable children in our nation, and we can do something about it. That it's not something that we should turn our faces away from, but we should look at directly and do something about it. And I wanted to ask you, especially you, Esther, and Jam, you've been here a while. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the role of advocacy in all the work that we do?
I think from the very start, it's been about changing culture. Because as we know, when you try to make a difference, if the place isn't prepared and the people aren't prepared, you're just going to not really waste, but you're going to get a lot of heartache trying, right? And the power of advocacy is that, or its role rather, is that it builds culture, it reshapes culture. Just bringing adoption and foster care into more conversations makes people more comfortable to talk about it. I have a friend where if they met her, they've heard about adoption because she knows me. And she thinks because I talk about it so much, it's important. So when she meets her friends, she makes it important for them. She brings it into the conversation. And I didn't ask her to, right? But because we advocated, she believes in it. And because she believes in it, she talks about it. And because she talks about it, other people hear it. And because they hear it, they can't unhear it. And that's what changes culture.
Yeah, I think even like when we were not knowingly, starting out this program or whatever it's called, advocacy, right? Because really at the time, how it started for us as Generations Home was really like me, Karina, and John sitting and meeting for the first time, and really just knowing, like being aware, making yourself aware of the problems around you and the issues and the gaps. And also on the other end, knowing what's in your hand. And for us, that was communication. Like none of us were like, are you a social worker? No. Did you ever work for, the adoption space? No. Like all we knew what to do was create a message and put it out there. And I think from there, we kind of figured out that was like the first puzzle piece that was given to us. And we said, well, I know of people who need to know this. And I think it starts with that. Advocacy starts with that, whether that's one person in your contact list, your friend list, or that's a group that you're part of or a church community you're part of. Really just starting with that question that who needs to know what I know? Then you're an advocate. it's as simple as that. It's not something that there's no licensure for advocate or, credentials that are needed to call yourself an advocate, but really a willingness and an openness to share what you know, and then ask that question together. Like it's a bottomless, kind of just it's bottomless, that questioning of what can we do, what can we know, and what can we equip ourselves with. The army just keeps getting bigger, but the question is always an unanswered question.
Yeah, I guess now, like, the term influencer is such a huge thing, but it's really, like, I feel like influencers are really advocates of whatever they're standing for or speaking about. And I think it's so innate in people to be influencers or advocates. And I think it's a question now of what are you trying to influence people to do or to take part of. And I think that's what advocacy really is. It's like you're influencing people to do either something idle about their life or something negative or something positive that can create change in our society, which I believe we need right now is change in our society. And I feel like instead of us being falling victim to our realities right now in front of us, we can actually create a change. And we're, in the Bible, we're called more than conquerors. And I really believe that that's a call for us as well, that we're more than conquerors. We can make a difference. It's just a matter of what we're going to do about it. And I think when we look at like what kind of an impact this advocacy is creating, I think from my point of view as someone who's doing the podcast, I'm hearing a lot of stories from people. Actually, when people that we would meet, even you guys, when you would go to the US, right? You would chance upon people and they would say, we listened to the podcast. We learned about this through your podcast. And I think just even a podcast creates a difference, makes a difference. And we're just talking. We're just blabbering here with a microphone and a camera. But people's lives are getting touched and changed. And, the difference that we can make just by talking is incredible. Like also for our Pregnant Women in Crisis program, in our recent gathering last November 2025, we had so many volunteers come. Wow. It was from our partner church, Victory BGC, but so many of them came. I think we had 15 or 16 women of different ages. So we had college students and we had young professionals and 60-year-old women come to actually spend time with the women that we serve, the moms we serve, and embrace them and listen to them and pray for them and encourage them. And even just by that, we just, said, hey, there's a gathering we're doing and we're talking about what a difference we can make in mothers who are vulnerable. I think that's when we know advocacy is making a difference, is when there's an action afterwards. And so, and even by that, just seeing the mothers like light up and come in with so much, like they were so timid and shy and they didn't know what to expect, but leave with so much, like I really know that they felt seen and they felt loved. And that's even just by that moment, we made an impact. We don't know what kind of long-lasting impact that might have created in these moms. But I really believe that we did something in their lives, and it's because volunteers, people said yes, and they caught the heart and they caught the vision for spending time with these moms and blessing them. And speaking of church partners, and I know Tina, you work a lot with our partners, and what's what have you seen in this aspect of like advocacy making a difference?
I think before I go into that, I wanted to share just the impact of the advocacy work to me specifically. I should have said this earlier, but when I learned about Generations Home, I did not at all know what it was about. Again, Jam was key. And for me specifically, back in January, before I joined Generations Home, I think the key in the advocacy, you were talking about advocacy having like an action afterwards. It's really the breaking of the heart for me. And I think that is really our prayer, that whenever we talk about it, whenever people hear about the crisis, there's a breaking of heart. Because that's what happened to me. And when God broke my heart about our advocacy, the vulnerable children back in January, I knew that He was calling me to this. And I knew that I was going to be here and this is my season. And I was called to really just respond in a way like this, like being part of the team and just really being with Generations Home, continuing the advocacy work. And I think with that, I'm saying this because I had no idea. And just like anybody else, that we're actually aiming to really touch with what we're doing with the advocacy work. I think specifically for the churches that we've worked on, I can see so much progress in that. I think the church's heart is already breaking as well. I think I can see a lot of that. I can see different walks of life. In fact, not just couples. I mean, there's also single women. There's also people who are not married, maybe just couples, married, just young women even, or young men. They're very much like, these are the people that we pray that God really breaks their heart for the same that breaks ours, right? And His. And I think we've seen that a lot in the last few months in the church. There's so much testimony already in that. Specifically when we did this gathering for adoptive and foster families in our partner church in Victory BGC. It's just amazing because we had one volunteer who actually hosted the event. She's not married. She's very much single. She's an existing volunteer of the church. Her heart has been broken, and we were talking about it after the event. She was really praying about adopting. She was really praying about this because she really feels for what we advocate for. This is part of her taking part in that action. She was hosting all the adoptive families who actually came to that gathering. At the same time, you were talking, I think one of her actions is she's already going to be pursuing social work. So I think, and I think that's her next step, I think. And I told her,
record.
yes,
Now you have to do it.
no name mentioned anyway. But yeah,
You know who you are.
yeah, but I mean,
Wow.
it's just amazing. These are it's not necessarily just adopting, but there's really just actions like these steps that people can take. Right. And another probably story that we can share from that same church community, there's an adoptive family. The parents are actually initiating the gatherings already for the adoptive families. And these are essential. We also advocate for community, for support groups, for our adoptive and foster families. So I think it's been great. And at least in this last year that I've been part of this, I can see a whole really great impact of the advocacy work that we've been doing, beginning from just from the years back that the Jam and Karina and the rest of the team have been really working. I think we're seeing the fruits, and it's been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just speaking about the families, right? You were sharing about the adoptive families, the adoptive family who is initiating the gathering or the community. We've seen that adoptive and foster families actually automatically become advocates in itself when they bring in their children. Just even seeing them is already speaking messages to people that surround them. And one family has grown here, and it's Jam's family, right? Jam, your family has grown through fostering, and I'd love for you to share the journey of that, how that started.
When like on the topic of advocacy, right? Like I've been doing it since the 8 years of Generations Home, like advocating and raising awareness, whether that's through events or campaigns and things like that. When I think like behind the scenes, like on a personal level, this is something that there's just no off button. It seems like that because of that overflow of what the hope that you encounter and then the realities you encounter. I mean, it becomes a dinner table topic naturally. And so when I'm at home, this is something that we talk about as a family, my parents, even my sister, and they just witness. Of course, they know like what I do for work and all that. And so for many years, they've just been following along that journey. And in, several events, they would come for like worship nights and any volunteer opportunity, they would volunteer and just be present, right? And I think it was many years of that. I think in the last year, they've been volunteering and attending TBRI trainings, especially when TBRI came to our church at Saddleback. They were attending those workshops, those trainings that I was leading. So it's kind of like, I don't know if they were there because they were interested or they were just supporting me, but it was already kind of a sight to see, them attending with their small group, with their friends, and really just equipping themselves to be better parents, but their daughters are, not in the home anymore. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is something you'll pass on, right, to the families you're leading or serving. But when a particular need arose this year, they had the opportunity to foster. They quickly said yes. And it was almost an instant yes. And I was just struck by that. And they welcomed a teenager home. And I now have a brother. And for me, kind of parang nag-reel, nag-backtrack everything, like all the events that they were present in and all the social media posts they shared, and they would message their friends who they think would adopt or foster someday. And they even were casted in our short film because we had no other actor and actress to act as parents in that short film who were on our web, and then that screenshot is being used for all the flyers and the website and the post.
And in that one, they were parents
and they
to
were
a
parents
teen
to a
boy.
teenager, like a 17-year-old baby. And then when in a matter of a couple of months or a month, they welcomed home my brother, and it's like, wow. All this was for that. Really, that was all I could think of. And I have several conversations, even with Karina and John, like, Jam, if this is all it is, and all of this was a setup so that your brother can be home, that's advocacy. That's all we've been gearing up to be doing. And I think that just made advocacy so real to me even more, right? It's not just something I do, but it's really a life that we're living as a family. And I got to see that from my parents. For me, I'm a fruit of that, but really to see people like them who are not doing this because it's their job or, they're from different fields, but to hear them say, if this is the next season of our life, let's do it. And not just that, I think that represents the many families that we just encounter and know by name. And I know that you guys are thinking of some names right now, right? Na simply started by sharing a post or liking a post or attending an event, attending a film screening, whatever it is. I think I had this realization about advocacy a month ago or a few weeks ago where, for example, and I was at an event when I realized this, and I was sitting in at that event and being in the midst of different families who were doing, the TBR activities and whatever training was happening, right? And I just looked at each family and would have short chats with each family, and they would have different responses. Some of them did not want to be there, were forced to be there, were just required to be there. Some were very eager and were having fun. And I just thought at the back of my mind, for these families, to be closer to whether that's adoption or foster care or reunification, perhaps it takes 100 nudges before someone takes an action. But you don't know what number you're on when you're serving these families. So for us, for our team, and for the advocates and volunteers and interns who have come through our doors, right? We don't know whether this thing we're mounting now is the 4th nudge or the 99th nudge to push them to action. So we just do it. We do it regardless. And so whether you know or don't know, we just advocate. And I think that's also, what I want to encourage everyone with.
That's so beautiful, Jam. It's really powerful what your family has gone through. It's really a testament of I don't know, how God uses everything and he orchestrates everything. And you had no idea entering into this space that you would gain a brother down the road. And even your parents, when they were filming that short film, they probably did not know that a few years later that would become a reality. It's not just for a short film. God's really faithful even to your brother. And another story on this couch, it's actually Esther's, and please share your journey and how advocacy also impacted you to make those decisions.
So I was already working with Jen Home, and we worked on FAQs, like adoption FAQs. It sounds so simple, but it was actually the post that got us 2 million reach on Facebook. I don't remember if we were on Instagram then, but for sure Facebook. And I remember proofreading the post before it went out. And then there was one image dedicated to answering the question, can I adopt as a single person? It's burned into my memory. I still remember the color of the post and the the font and everything, because I didn't know until then, even if I was already working here, that you can adopt as a single person. And I planned to adopt, but I thought it's okay, down the road when I'm married, etc. but I didn't know. And from the moment I saw that post, I actually started seeding it into my family. It's hey, when you guys come back, I might have a kid, by adoption, So I floated it so that they wouldn't be shocked, because from the moment the image froze in my mind, I was already set. And when my family wasn't coming back, because they were abroad and they decided to stay abroad, the first thing I said was, well, I'm moving back to my province because I'm going to adopt, and it's cheaper there and it's faster. My entire life just reshaped itself around adopting as a single person. And I did. I moved back. I did the whole application in Region 10, and then I got matched last year. So for me, that one image, and I was just proofreading it, right? I'm in comms, so for me, it's work that I was doing when I saw it, and it changed my life and the lives, my family's life, and of course my son's life. So I adopted a 9-year-old last year. He got into football this year, so my life has been football. Somebody asked me yesterday, did you have a good year or a bad year? I said, I have no idea, but I had a football year. And I'm so happy that I think our last tournament of the year is done. There's still December, but I'm happy that it's going to go back a little more to normal, but I'm a very proud soccer mom. I couldn't ask for anything more. I've always wanted to be I've always wanted to be here.
So beautiful, Esther. I think as we close, I wanted to ask you what would you tell maybe single people who are listening to this podcast? Maybe they're considering adoption or foster care. What would you like to tell them?
I think it's great to have a community, but instead of waiting for the community to form around you, form them around you. If they don't believe in it, talk to them about it. If they have doubts, listen and then answer them. Because if you're sure, you'll know what to say. If you're not sure, it's better to think about it, right? If they have doubts, then think, It's like, oh yeah, that's a good question. I would tell people when they say, oh, do you have regrets? You can't move around as quickly. You're spending for two people now. And I really say I grieved that before I adopted. So in the process, when I'd get a pushback, let's say from my family members or from friends who don't understand, or people, even now, like people whose faces change when they see me as a single mom, I have already thought about it and I've cried before I adopted. Like I would sit in my room and be like, what am I doing? I can't do this anymore. I'll be limited. I'll have to think of another person. I can't just take risks, And then I'd cry and I'd cry and I'd cry and I'd cry and then I'm done. And then I continued and then I adopted, So if I guess if you're afraid, then be afraid. And then if you have doubts, then talk about them. And then if you want to grieve it, then grieve it. And then when you're on the other side of that, if you're still sure, then just adopt. Because then it's really for you. If you have grieved and you've come to the other side. But I would say never walk into it without doing that. Like if other people have doubts, listen. If they have questions, answer. If they make you think twice, because it is going to change your life. Because for me, I always knew it was the right decision. But some days I didn't know if it was a happy decision. But it has been wonderful. So just think about it. And if on the other side, it's still it for you, then it's for you. There's a child waiting for you. So just go ahead. You better do it.
How about Jam? What would you say to maybe families who it's very your family situation is very special. Your parents are already well in their years and their children, their biological children, are already adults. What would you say to families out there and their hearts are being touched right now, are being stirred to consider adoption or foster care? What would you like to encourage them with?
I think my encouragement, same for everyone, right? That just ask yourself what's in your hand and not look at what the other person has in their hand. You can't decide for that person, but you can only decide for yourself. And I think that's what I saw with my family. It would have been easy to, when we heard this boy's story, it would have been easy to say that family could do it. But that was not an option. We did not make that an option. It really was simply, what can we do? And I think, whether that's adoption or fostering or advocating, the only question you could answer is, what can you do, right? And I think it's just a question worth asking. I've been asking myself that question every day for the last 8 years. And it has led to so many wonderful things. So when you guys say that you met me and the rest is history, I just asked myself that morning that question. And that's probably what led to those conversations, that I'll share our advocacy, I'll share what I know, then, let God do the rest. And let that break this person's heart, or let that story reach this person's, this person or this community. But really, I think that's the heart of advocacy, whether that's changing culture. That was not the goal for that day. The goal for that day was simply to use what I have, and then in the long run witness, that now that we're looking back at each of our stories and what's been made possible at Generations Home, or not just Generations Home, but really as the bigger community that we're part of. I think it's a lot of people asking themselves that question, what can I do?
I love what you said, that, your family chose to do this. They didn't look to another family to show up to do this. They're like, we can do it. We're able to do it. This is in our capacity to do it, and we're willing. And they showed up, and now your brother has a family and you have a brother. And so that's so wonderful. And for Tina, I wanted to ask you, maybe there are people out there who want to get involved, or maybe they want their church to get involved, or what would you like to tell them?
Yeah, I think just following from what Esther and Jam just said, no, it's the first thing to ask is really, what can I do? What do I have right now, and what can I do? Because it's not necessarily just, okay, I'll adopt, I'll foster. No, the reason why we're doing this is it's really to understand what's our capacity to take part in this. And I think we've been sharing a lot of the ways that people can really respond, right? And I'm glad we have Esther here. We have Jasmine. There's different stories and testimonies that we're able to share that can really show that you don't have to be a married couple to be responding to this, right? I just want to share how inspired and amazed I am to the families who actually took that, I'll call it a leap of faith, just to really choose to adopt and to foster. I'm always in awe. And I'm a single mom. I have biological kids, so I do not know what entails that parenting style for adoptive children. But I'm just in awe of how they're able to do it and the grace, and that alone gives me inspires me to actually take part, not necessarily to get a child of my own for now. But I mean, I take action in the ways that I can. So specifically for us, we're able to help people and encourage people to support. I mean, if you're a single person, you can pray. You can pray for these people. You can be community to these adoptive and foster families. There's also ways to financially and logistically be there for them, because there's a lot of foster families, even adoptive families, even not in our community. So our prayers for them to be connected to communities, but they also there's a need, and there's also ways to actually provide for that. We were just talking about this in one of our Sound of Hope screenings. If there's an adoptive family, they need help in just caring for the kids while doing something, maybe changing diapers, bringing diapers, just the support is really a huge help. And we've seen that in our own communities, in the church and even outside. So that's just one. And there's so many ways. We encourage people to volunteer. But I mean, there's so many things that we're doing right now. But our heart is really for your hearts to break for this. Because when you volunteer, just advocating for it in your own space, in your own circles, that's really what we would love to have, right? Like our volunteers are not volunteers for the day. Our volunteers or interns are not just for that season or for that day, but when you're part of Generations Home, you volunteer for a bit. Our heart is for you to be bringing that out to your schools, to your workplaces. As you volunteer, you become an advocate yourself, right? And there's just so many ways. And again, we have all our social media, our communications channels and all that for them too. But I encourage everyone, regardless of your walk in life, your status and all, I think we're all called for this. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just want to encourage everyone that, we're changing lives. This is beyond us. This is beyond our own lives. I feel like nowadays everything has been so self-centric. And what we're talking about right now is we're changing children's lives and the lives of generations to come. And, Esther said earlier, advocacy, it's really changing culture. And, even the term ampon or adopted is such a negative thing in the Philippines. And I'm seeing a difference because we're talking about this. And I would just like to go back to what Jam said earlier. What's in your hands? And the quickest thing that I can say right now is you have a phone in your hands right now, maybe as you're listening to this. And one way that I think you can, if you really want to take part in this mission of ending the orphan crisis in the Philippines, one way we invite you to do it is go on your phone right now, go on social media, click search for Generations Home, follow us, and pick post to share. Share it on your stories, share it with your friends, share it with your families, and read about it. And I just want to share one last story that we've heard before, that one of our volunteers shared a post on their social media, and one of her followers, who are her friends, saw this post and they decided to adopt. So it wasn't even her who adopted, it was someone who saw what she shared. And that child's life changed forever. And that family's life changed forever. And that child's child and children and the generations after that has been changed forever. And this is the impact we can make. We have on the tips of our fingers. We can change generations. We can bring generations home. And so thank you so much for listening and watching to this podcast episode. Thank you so much, Tina, Esther, and Jam, for joining me today for our first episode of 2026. We're so excited to see what else is to come this year. Thank you for listening. Catch us on the next episode. Bye. Thank you.
That was the Family is the Answer podcast by Generations Home, powered by Podcast Network Asia. Learn more about ending the orphan crisis and fueling our work through our website, generationshome.org. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you found this podcast helpful, please leave us a rating so more people can find it too. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you at our next episode.